While it has some definite flaws, Series 8's second episode and only Dalek story, Into the Dalek, is enjoyable for a variety of reasons, not least because it is packed with references to previous Dalek stories. While its parallels to the Series 1 episode Dalek are perhaps the episode's most notable set of callbacks, this story also features several nods to an even older Dalek episode, none other than Resurrection of the Daleks from Season 21 of Classic Who. The sequence from Resurrection of the Daleks in which the Daleks board the prison station in an attempt to rescue Davros is one of the episode's most important sequences. This was the Daleks' big return to screens after a long hiatus, as while a singular Dalek had cameoed for a sequence in The Five Doctors, there had not been a dedicated Dalek story since Destiny of the Daleks in 1979. As such, their explosive entrance into the station illustrated that the Daleks were back and meant business. Resurrection of the Daleks also introduces the idea of Dalek duplicates, humanoids who had been kidnapped by the Daleks and replaced with near-identical copies who were programmed to obey Dalek commands. This idea had some sinister implications that aren't fully explored in the story, but the episode is nonetheless able to use the duplicates idea to great effect, pulling the rug out from under the viewer's feet several times over the course of the adventure. Resurrection of the Daleks also reintroduces the idea that, in the far future, humanity is locked in a bitter war with the Daleks, who despite being weakened and fragmented by the Mavellan War are still making inroads into human space. However, as a result of the era in which this episode was made and the resources that were available to the production team at the time, Resurrection does in some ways fail to fully realise the ambitious ideas that Eric Saywood made for this story. The boarding sequence in particular is limited by the effects used at the time. The scene of the Daleks blasting through the airlock doors is great, but it's bogged down by technical issues. The Daleks have to slowly shuffle forward to move through the door debris. The whole scene is just too slow, and to make matters worse, the guns that the human forces use are basically just light up props with a sound effect added. There's no visual effects used for them at all. I understand why this is the case. The show was replicating the kind of toy laser guns that kids would use on a playground, but in hindsight it hinders the impact of the scene. This is where Into the Dalek comes in. This episode features a sequence in which a Dalek boarding party invades a human ship to rescue their comrade Dalek, and it essentially aims to recreate the boarding sequence from Resurrection of the Daleks but fix many of the issues of that story while still staying true to the classic Doctor Who method of using practical effects. Everything from the door explosion sequence featuring 12-inch remote control Daleks, to the actual attack scene featuring a huge amount of pyrotechnics and intense cross-cutting, to the fact that the humans use weapons that actually fire lasers instead of lighting up and making a zap sound, everything about this sequence dramatically improves on Resurrection of the Daleks' version of the scene. Into the Dalek also features a line referencing the Dalek duplicates, as Colonel Blue initially believes that the Doctor is a duplicate, and the episode continues the general theme of humanity being locked in an endless war with the Daleks in the far future, strengthening the parallels between this story and Resurrection of the Daleks. And these analogues are important to note, as comparing the practical effects used in these two Dalek stories illustrates just how far Doctor Who has come over the years in terms of visuals. What do you think? Are there any other parallels between Resurrection of the Daleks and Into the Dalek that weren't mentioned here? Which of these two episodes do you prefer? And what other examples of parallels between Classic Who and New Who stories can you think of? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.